Hello, and today I would like to talk about a few other aspects of business ethics, hard truths that normally don't get covered. And just as I decided to cover lots of things that usually are being promoted or preached by business ethicists out there, but rarely get supported for a number of reasons. And what are those hard truths are actually? So let's go over them one by one so that we can see that it's a very complex combination of various factors. And so we can discern between what's really out there, what does exist, and what needs to be promoted, versus those fake truths that are being spoon-fed to the community and business people. So today I would like to talk about reciprocity because that's something that almost no business ethicists want to talk about. And there's a number of reasons why. Well, first off, we all know that social psychology puts reciprocity as a social norm of responding as a positive action to another positive action, and that in turn results in rewarding that kind of action, in a series of other actions. So we all may think of this as reciprocity, as a one trade-off, like scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. But it's not really true, because with reciprocity, we see that as a way of reinforcing our relationships, leading to more trust. And that comes in conflict with what a lot of business ethicists love to talk about, building trust. We need to promote trust. But you do that, and it all starts with small steps like reciprocity, so that even inside of a small community, you can reinforce this goodwill as an exchange of actions, even within a small community. Okay, let's talk about a professional community of business ethicists. Well, that's where you start. That's where you look, and you don't see that. You see people taking advantage of other people. When they claim like, oh, could you do this for me? But then they never really follow up to say, look, I really appreciate what you did for me. Is there anything I can do for you? Because they know it's frowned upon. You don't do that. Well, later we'll examine why is that we don't do it like that. And, if we try to go back to the times when there was no formal governments or any formal system of trade, reciprocity did play a big role in ancient Greece. So back then, before the rule of law, it was already in place to make sure that this transaction system between people was put in place, and to encourage other people to follow up and sustain and develop it further. It's interesting that a lot of, actually you would find a lot of business ethics would rather talk about acts of altruism, of how it is important to support the unconditional act of altruism, whereas sometimes it's borderline. You give your kidney to a stranger, and so that needs to be promoted as a selfless act. And those selfless acts, how do they help the community? How do they help set forth a good example? So there's a lot of that stuff that sort of gets convoluted, and it's probably best to look at it further, in great detail. Well, we all live in the world full of deceit and manipulation for gain. And of course, the fake news and everything, and the social media, all of that just compounds to muddy up the waters for those people who try to retain some sanity living in this world. So, okay, let's not try to go far. I will try to stay within the boundaries of business ethics community to test a few test a few things here and there, and then we can look at that and see if anything I discover to be of merit, is worth discussing, or maybe it's not. But again, I'm shooting this series just for myself and a couple of friends. It's not like I'm trying to make a big splash out there. And now, back to reciprocity. A lot of people, seem to try to build this, kind of a positive reputation using reciprocity, but it's almost like manipulating reciprocity for gain to increase their, equity as a result of doing that. Well, fortunately, it's very easy to see through if anyone starts doing that. So it's not like people will say like, oh yeah, that was a really selfless, generous way of doing that, because people can sense that somebody is ripping off the system, and trying to reap the benefits of indirect reciprocity, as they call it. Now, why is that, reciprocity has become like a poisoned well over time? Well, technically, if we go back, and that's what I've discovered with a lot of people in the business community who, by trading favors, they really want to get an ounce of your flesh as a result. So therefore, it's never an equal exchange. It's almost like, hey, I'll do a favor for you, but I'll demand the world in return. And these are the people that poison the well, because first off, they created this awareness that you shouldn't be doing that, because people may actually take advantage of you through those small selfless acts, or acts of gratitude, or acts of generosity. And therefore people have become very aware, and try to steer clear from any of those situations. But however, people who are aware themselves of this, they're still trying to feed off the system by saying that, hey, could you do this for me? Could you do that for me? Asking for favors. But at the same time, they always try to draw that line in the sand when other people would call them in on what they've done for them. So therefore, they could say, oh, it's almost like it's frowned upon, I'm too busy. So in the business ethics community, I discovered it's interesting that people who pride themselves to be ethical, they seem to be behaving exactly like those businessmen, use up the goodwill and move on, thinking they would never have to go back to the people they have taken advantage of. So this is my sort of a lesson today I wanted to share with you. It's a larger behavioral economy slash, societal norms that actually create that, situation when sustaining and developing trust, even like through small acts of reciprocity, has become quite a challenge. And therefore, that's why we have this fake bubble of trust, integrity building, and a lot of people who drawn in, all these speakers and coaches and business ethicists who talk about that, live in that bubble. And there's a hard truth, the hard reality of where these things are, completely disconnected from what these guys are talking about, completely disconnected from what is happening on the ground. So let's try to keep our feet grounded in this hard reality and stay away from people who are fake, and are trying to represent the real, the real value and the real truth and, ethics, because these two worlds have gone too far apart, and I don't think that bridging them would serve any value to any of us. So stay tuned.